I'm interested in.
We will now continue with part two of our Esri Arc Pro workshop. And Jared, I am going to hand it back to you.
Thank you very much. All right, I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. I know I did. I'm a hangry person, so always thank you to my colleagues for taking that question and answer session so I can stay cheery and energetic. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen now. And I wanted to, okay, let me get all my windows rearranged here. And participants, sweet. Okay. So on the screen right now, I just wanted the chance to highlight this. Jason Fetch specifically asked me to mention this because it's come up in conversations with folks around catalogs. So how many of you worked in our catalog before? You can give me a thumbs up, a green check. Yep, yeah, a lot of people did it. Catalog didn't go away, but now, I don't know if any of you noticed it when on the start screen of ArcGIS Pro, there is an option for a catalog template. And so this is what deploys when you look at the catalog template. So for those of you who might be looking to get away from your catalog workflows or are feeling like being able to access the catalog just in your normal pro projects isn't enough, that catalog template is an option for you. And there are a variety of tools that you can cover with it. So just wanted to make that known to all of you. Okay, so, and before we get into parcels, I would like to highlight one thing in the Living Atlas. So the Living Atlas, as I showed you on that slide, has a lot of content. And I just wanted to show you real quick what some of that looks like. So just an example of something that comes up a lot is, let's get my, is it unhappy with me now? I think it's decided to be slow on loading today. Didn't have the caffeine that I've had. Don't get to look at it today. We'll come back to it. We'll let it think. We'll go into parcels. So this is what the parcel fabric looks like in ArcGIS Pro. I know this is the Land Information Association, so I thought you might like to take a glance at parcels in Pro for those of you who have not had a chance to look at it. Is anybody give me a thumbs up check using the parcel fabric in ArcMap currently? See a couple people. All right. Has anyone made the switch to the Pro parcel fabric? And give me a two. Okay, two people. All right, that sounds about right. A couple things that are really interesting about it, just as a little bit of a knowledge transfer, is that it has its own contextual tools. And something also with Pro that's really nice, and I will point it out for parcels, but you can also use this for your other workflows, is tasks. So there is a specific set of tasks for parcel fabric. These are pre-created by Esri that will walk you through. So say I want to merge a parcel, and it's a set of steps that have been created so that you can merge a parcel. But this could apply to any workflow. So say you're doing street center lines and you want a new street center line task. You could do that. You have a new address task. Anything that you know you're going to be doing repetitively that might require some input there, you can create a task for. So it's a great option for people who have those repetitive workflows, or if you want to make sure that the data is going to be of a certain quality and make sure you're not forgetting any steps, so your workers aren't forgetting any steps, definitely consider making tasks part of your workflow. And then also here, I want to highlight the error inspector. So the error inspector is one of my favorite things in Pro, because for anyone who's ever had to do a planimetric update or go through their street networks, storm sewer networks, any of that kind of stuff, it can be a hassle to try and find those errors. So this is a parcel fabric. It's got topology on it. You can use your inspector, anything you've got, run topology on. And it's going to come here and give you this really nice window and highlight every error in whatever extent you've chosen to validate. And then it will give you the details of the error related feature, and it will also give you options to fix it. And a fun trick, if you know for sure there's one error that's consistent, you've checked it all out and say, you know what, I think they're all the same problem. You can select multiple errors at the same time. And then when you're in the fix window, if I know it's the same fix for all of them, just click fix and it will give you the number of errors that you've just gotten rid of. So it is a great way to accelerate your quality control and topology review. Just some things I wanted to note while we're here. And it looks like the Living Atlas has decided to not work. So if any of my Esri colleagues are having the same problem, we should submit a bug on that. Okay, so I want to get away from Pro now, just for a second. And I did promise extended capabilities in this workshop. So probably the newest extended capability that Esri has been really pushing out is around AI, machine learning, and deep learning. So I stole this slide from Jack Dangerman. Thank you, Jack. I know you didn't make it, but it is quite fun. There's a lot of things that are going on around this. There are a lot of buzzwords, and I think it's a topic that's not really well understood. I remember trying to hire a vendor to do a planimetric update, and there's a lot of suspicion. Well, these people are using AI, and I'm not sure what the data quality is going to be like. And there's all sorts of misinformation around it. So I wanted to show you, what AI and machine learning, deep learning are to Esri, and show you how we are making it available to our everyday users. So some terminology here. AI is artificial intelligence, and it is when your computer is doing something that traditionally we would consider had to have been done by a human, because there's some kind of decision-making process or higher level learning that needs to occur. And there are two subtypes of artificial intelligence. So you have machine learning and you have deep learning. So machine learning is using an algorithm, and deep learning is kind of based on what we would consider the neural network, which is basically just saying that there's multiple layers of processing that are functioning kind of in the way we hope the human brain would function. Don't need to know all of those details around it, but I just wanted to make you aware of those terms and what we're talking about. So we are going to specifically dive into deep learning, which again is a subtype of artificial intelligence. So we have a series of what we call pre-trained deep learning models. And so these are just a couple of them. If any of you saw some posts from Esri on LinkedIn or our blogs, these are fairly new. So very excited to get to show you all some of them today. We're going to look specifically at the wind turbine detection, which is a similar concept to like the building footprint, car detection, solar panels. And these are all deployable to you. So this is the ArcGIS Living Atlas of the world. And I've got my deep learning content here ready to go. And the only thing that you need to do from this page in order to get started with kind of doing a deep learning model is access the page, and then it will give you all the details around it. So what is required to run it, what kind of imagery you would need to have as an input in order to be eligible to run one of these models. And then you're going to download the package. And so that's what you would do on this stage. So if you say, oh, hey, you know what, I do have some aerial imagery and I'd like to see how the building footprints could do. This is your first step to come here and download this. Once you've gone through the Living Atlas and you have your situation figured out with what you want to try out, then you get to go into ArcGIS Pro. So I have a project up here. And so here's a little slice of imagery. Would anyone like to hazard a guess as to where this imagery is from? I'm sorry, it is not Wisconsin. But it is in the United States. If you want to drop in the chat, anybody want to throw a state out there? Colorado River, Colorado. I do have the chat window up this time after getting called out for not having it up. South Dakota. No, this is Texas. So welcome to Texas, everybody. Little fun tidbit about this. Yeah, I know, dang. You wouldn't think about it, but zoom out. Okay, then let me get my other page up here for myself to reference. So a couple things to make sure that you can run these deep learning models. You'll need to make sure that Pro is ready for you. So all of these require image analysts to run. So you can go back to that licensing like I showed you earlier and just make sure that your image analyst is available to you. It is kind of a heavy image analyst thing. So making sure that that is there is important. And then you will also need the deep learning library. So let's take a look at where you can find the libraries at. So we're going to go into Package Manager. And this is going to show me all of what is installed. Now, on the installed, you can check here, just type in Deep Learning Essentials, and I have it already installed. Now, when I was preparing for this demonstration, I realized I did not have it installed. So here's a couple things you might run into along the way. Always check your environment, your active environment. In my case, I just have my standard and then I have a clone. And it would not allow me to add the package I needed without having my clone updated. So something to bear in mind if you're going to start playing around with your packages, make sure everything is on the same version because that was a problem for me. And there's the deep learning package. As you can see here, it's got an installed package. There are multiple versions of it. So if you're not ready to switch to version 3 of ArcGIS Pro, or you might have had the package previously installed under a different version, make sure that you're getting that to the right level. Otherwise, it will not work, as I found out earlier. So once you have your package ready, you are ready to start getting into the actual deep learning bit of it. So this comes as a set of tools. So we're going to go into our analysis tab, and I'm going to get the toolbox open. So Image Analyst has its own set of tools, and deep learning is their own. So we do have quite a variety of tools that are available for you to do deep learning from. In this case, we're doing object detection. So let's go ahead and take a look at the object detection. So to start off, you need your input raster. That is my turbine detection layer in my case. It can be whatever you want it to be. Do pay attention to the size though, and also the capabilities of your machine. This is getting into stuff that uses a lot of power. So if you are trying to do, for example, the entire state of Wisconsin, you better have a beefy machine to do it or be prepared to wait several hours. Just gonna throw that out there for you. And then you're also going to need your model definition. This is that piece that we downloaded from the Living Atlas of the World page. So I'm going to come in here. I've got it under my training package. It's about 151 megabytes, so it's not too beefy on its own. But it will take a second to, if it's your first time loading in the package, I've done this a couple times in this project, It might take a while for these arguments to pop up. So just be aware of that. Sometimes these things do take time. So once I have this all together, depending on how much you know about it, depending on how much you know about your imagery, you can start to play with these. The one thing that I am going to change right off the bat is my batch size. I'm going to drop that down. So the reason that batch size is important is it will help speed up your processing time without overtaxing your system. So that's why that's an important note to make. I'm also going to check this non-maximum suppression here. So what this is going to do is it's going to make sure that duplicate features get removed. You know, computers are only as smart as their inputs. So in some cases, you know, these results are not going to be perfect, but we're going to give them their best chance to be in good shape. And then let's check in on our environments tab. So this is where we can, and I do believe this is still being recorded. If someone could confirm that though, that would be great. Awesome, perfect. So I'm going to set my coordinate system. I just want it to be the same as the map that I'm working in. I don't have any parallel processing to worry about. And I think that I'm just going to use my cell size from there. Let me make sure I have the notes on all the settings so that this will actually run correctly. So let me make sure I've got it. Yes, okay, great. And then your processor type is the only other setting that you need to worry about in this case. So you can choose to run it through your GPU or your CPU. Some of the models, I personally, and this is just a note, did have trouble running on my GPU. And I'm not entirely sure what the root cause of that was, but there's nothing wrong with running it through your CPU. If you happen to get an error from your GPU, and I can show you actually, I'll just show you what that error looks like. So you can have a look at it just in case it pops up for your CPU. In your case, it is one of those bold-faced errors. It's also a great thing to mention that when you start running these kinds of analysis, geoprocessing tools in ArcGIS Pro, they do have a different feel than ArcMap. Okay, so I've got my error now. It just popped out. And I gotta say, this is probably the boldest error I've ever gotten from Esri. Something unexpected, contact technical support. If this happens to you, don't worry about it. It happened to me the first time and I said, I have no idea what just happened here. I'm gonna make sure all my settings stay the same. I'm gonna switch it to my CPU. And I had no problem running this. Now, the thing with these, yeah, I know, it's an infamous one. It's not a fun one to get. It never makes you happy because there's nothing you can do about it. It just, oh, it's not the best. You can also try a smaller batch size. If you get an error, sometimes that will be a cause of it. Also, you can consider changing your extent. So this is a lot to bite off to chew. And, you know, in my case, I'm doing it on my laptop. You may be doing it on, you know, your laptop as well. So there's a couple things you can try. We will not have the time to watch this whole thing run just for this sample size. Depending on your PC, it can take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes to run. So just a note on that. These do take time. It doesn't mean anything's broken. You'll see down here in running, as long as it keeps climbing, that's okay. I did run this before our time together today, so I will share with you what that looks like. So this is the output that I got. Turbine detect objects, detected objects. So you zoom in here, and when the image refreshes, you can see it actually does a pretty good job of capturing that base of the turbine. And the whole hope with this, you know, they're not going to be perfect, but the amount of time they can save you, especially when it comes time to things like planimetrics is where my mind always goes, because there's so many people who have those planimetric projects that It's like, well, what am I going to do with it? It's suddenly, I'm just one person in GIS department. I don't have $20,000 to hire a contractor, but it would be really valuable to have some base level data on my impervious surfaces, building footprints. So I do encourage all of you, if you've got those needs, test it out. If you have access to Image Analyst, there is a course on deep learning, and that's actually where I pulled this demo specifically from. So I'm going to put that on the screen now. It will go through the different concepts of AI and machine learning. It'll also walk you through specifically how you can go about running this. And you can follow along these steps if you have a different model that you want to try. So that is our little bit here on AI and machine learning. Are there any questions around this topic? I'll take them at this time because I know this is kind of a hefty one. Feel free to type them in the chat. I'll give it a minute here. All right, seeing none. I will check to see if the Living Atlas has decided to work. That did concern me a little bit. There we are. All right, well, we can talk about the Living Atlas then real quick while I've got my information up. So I wanted to highlight one of my favorite layers in the Living Atlas for you, and hope it loads. So Esri is hosting this content. Esri has curated this content. I hope you can approach it with some level of confidence. I'm going to add this layer to my map here, and I would find a good area to show it off. So this is specifically land cover data. And I know some agencies have their own land cover data, but for a lot of people, I mean, it's kind of difficult to come by, and it can get expensive to start doing. So Esri does have these templates ready to go. And we do have a lot of them with time series information available. So this is where we start to get into our more dynamic layers. And this is 2017 to 2021. We do have some layers that are, in excess of 10 years. And you can also start getting these image services yourself. And the fun thing is when you can start playing with the time, you can actually play out things like changes in land cover over time, depending on what information you have and how you're shifting it. And you can play with these layers just like you would any other layer. It's just a service. So if you want to start seeing what's below it, you can put transparencies on it. You can put your imagery underneath of it to see how these things have been assigned. So this is just one example of the value that comes with the Living Atlas. And it's something that you're already paying for as part of your pro license. So just wanted to show this to you so you really can understand the value behind this. Also census data. So if you are how to enable/disable the time slider. Yeah. So you can turn off the time option. And it'll take a second to refresh, but you can disable the time and then you won't have to deal with that. And you can also collapse it if you don't want to see it. Does that answer your question? Awesome, perfect. Okay, so Living Atlas, moral of the story, try it. I love it, and I hope you will too. So getting back here, I want to talk a little bit about the last of our time together, getting started, strategies for getting started for those of you who haven't switched, and then hopefully more broadly for everybody, some of the resources that are available to you and that I hope you can make the most of. So for those of you who have not touched ArcGIS Pro yet, there is no day like today. After this presentation and the next presentation, download it. Go to your MyEsri account, download it, get it going. If your administrator has it on your computer, but you're just not using it, open it up. If you have a map, maybe it's a map that you visit occasionally, but you're really familiar with, start off by importing that. Import that map, play around with some of the tools that will really help you get a feel with it with familiar data. Or bring in a data set that you really like to play around with and see how ArcGIS Pro is different. I tell people it takes about 5 days. I kind of learned ArcGIS Pro by a fire hose. It was my first day of my first internship, and the agency I was interning with asked me, day one, how much ArcGIS Pro do you know? And I said, none, that was not on my resume. And then they handed me the book and said, well, we just switched last month, so learn it. And that was how I had to learn ArcGIS Pro. So there's nothing better than doing it on your own time, but sometimes the fire hose does help. And what I recommend is at the start of your day, when you are getting ready to do your GIS workflow, open ArcGIS Pro first. Try and do everything that you can in ArcGIS Pro. And if you get stuck, to the point where your work is being inhibited or you're just too frustrated, go back to ArcMap, do what you needed to do in ArcMap. And then the next time that you need to do something, open Pro. And what I found is that if people do that for a whole week, your whole work week, where every time you need something, you're trying ArcGIS Pro first, that really has helped a lot of people. So nothing to be intimidated by. There's all those resources on the starting page, and then there's also the training site, which we are going to touch on in just a second. Anything and everything is out there on the web, and if worse comes to worse and you're having trouble figuring out how to transition your organization or your workflows, you can reach out to your account team. So your account manager is a place that you can start with, as someone who can be a resource to you. They can refer you to somebody like me. We want to make you successful. So if a 20-minute call is what it takes to help you, we have people who can try and do that for you. So specifically around Pro, we do have a lot of resources available. So there's 2 instructor-led courses for people who just really like to have that, more focused attention, smaller work setting, having an instructor there to walk you through things, walk you through specific projects, migrating from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, and then ArcGIS Pro Essential Workflows. And there's also several more specific courses. So if there's certain things that you want to do, for example, if you've got Parcel Fabric, there's a couple courses around the Parcel Fabric. And they're all centered on Pro, but they do require that kind of base level knowledge for you to get going. There's also the Pro resource page, our terminology guide. So there's a lot of different things that we can connect you with if you need them. And as I mentioned, we're here for you. So I have a lot of colleagues here on our team. I think our state and local team for the Upper Midwest is 18 people. But beyond the state and local team, there's lots of other teams. Terry is on Ed Services. So this is our contact information, and I do think we'll try and send these slides out to you. At least I will forward them to Laurel, and then I will leave it up to WLIA how they would like to distribute them to you. So I'm a solution engineer. If you have a question that's not related to me, I'm more than happy to get you to who the right person is. I think the same thing goes for all of us. Terry is training. So if you have any question with training plans, getting your organization trained up, Terry is your guy. Chad is for cities and towns under 50,000, or counties, cities and towns under 50,000. So if you're under 50,000 people, Chad's probably your account manager. So you can give him a buzz. Chad and I work together quite a lot. And then if you're over 50,000, there's a good chance that Jason Fetch is your account manager. So I have his email down here, and that is that's it for our contacts. I will kind of close my demonstration and my active presentation on the Esri mission. And this is something that I consider very personal to me. And I think that all of us have really drank the Kool-Aid on it. Our job is about making you successful. if you're not successful, then we're not doing our job, and that doesn't make us happy. You know, we want to feel like we're here doing important work and helping you do important work. So anything you need, please feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we do sessions like this for larger organizations. We help enable our users on individual levels. We connect them with resources, and we're here for you. So we will work with you however you need. And I am very appreciative of this time that we have had together. I really thank you all for your attention, and we're going to break into question and answer session now. So if you have questions that you want to type in, or you want to come over and ask, I know there's still a couple people from Esri on the line, so I can't answer them. They can jump in and help me, and we can get, if none of us know the answer, we will get the information for you some way, somehow. Don't worry about it. And if you want to go back into the software, if there's something that you really wanted to see that we haven't shown, I have Pro open, I have ArcMap open, so we can dive into that as needed. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to you all and see what questions we have. So see, one came in. Do you or the Esri team know if there are plans for concurrent licensing for Pro to not be offered in the future? I am not aware of any such plan. I think concurrent use licensing is going to stick around. Ryan, Chad, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Jared. I haven't heard anything and don't see that as something we're planning on moving away from. I will say that there are several advantages of moving toward a named user model and leveraging your portal, whether it be ArcGIS or ArcGIS Enterprise. Jared got into a little, some of those, but the Living Atlas and having it being connected, Pro being connected to ArcGIS to your enterprise portal or ArcGIS Online. And there's other advantages too. So I would encourage at least the thought of using named users to access Pro, but no, we're however you want to license it, we're going to still support it moving forward.
All right.
Clarification there. Yeah, there was another. Yeah, so some functionality will not be available with concurrent licensing. No, you can still access that Living Atlas content by logging in. So depending on which enterprise portal, or if you're logged into ArcGIS Online, you can still have Pro be licensed by a single use or concurrent use license. Just some of those workflows and connections between your portal become a little bit easier with the named user model, but you'll still gain access to that content, and there really isn't any functionality difference between the different licensing types for further clarification.
Okay, so it looks like the next question that came in is, can you explain the ways you can run into trouble if you are in ArcMap and have existing published content, then work in Pro at the same time? If you try to update the existing services in Pro, what will happen? Yeah, so an ArcMap service versus a Pro service. Yeah, republish it from Pro and then keep publishing it from Pro. I think you will find that that's the best course of action. So just pull that data into Pro and then publish your service, and then keep working from Pro. That's my best advice on that. Looks like next one, as it relates to Living Atlas content in Pro, can you go over the credit consumption, the indicators that show if credits will be used? I don't believe any content in the Living Atlas, if you're pulling it into Pro, consumes credits. That's not my understanding. Ryan, do you have any?
Yep.
That is correct.
Just viewing should be good. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that that's the case. Yep.
Is there a way to manage editability in ArcGIS Pro, or do you have to go to AGO? So in terms of your web services, once you've published something, if you want to pull that service back in to edit it in Pro, that is going to go through your ArcGIS Online. Because the service is coming from ArcGIS Online, so that's where you're going to have to give it the permission to do that. And I can pull up where that is in a second here, just so that everyone can be on the same page what I'm talking about. Just need to get my ArcGIS Online up. And let's open up a feature layer here.
Is that what you're getting at, Laurel? The editability of a layer from ArcGIS Pro, or?
Yeah, I didn't know if you,
That's what I
if there's
thought.
a
Yep.
special way.
Gotcha.
So when you come into ArcGIS Online, this is the layer that we just published earlier from Pro, and come into the settings and then enable editing.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that editing is enabled, you can go ahead, bring that layer into Pro and edit it. And then I just recommend when you're done, going back in and turning that editing off. It does take a little bit of time, but it is nice to not have to hassle with the republishing of your service, to have that direct editing enabled. And as long as you're turning it off, again, as soon as you're done, you probably won't run into any issues with your data being corrupted. Let's see here, but before you publish, you'll want to make sure that's enabled in ArcPro. Yes, you can. You can enable editing in ArcGIS Pro, or you can enable it in AGOL. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but you can have it starting from Pro as editable. Can you demonstrate attribute rules for those that use Attribute Assistant in ArcMap? I don't have anything available to demonstrate attribute rules at the moment.
Yeah, that would be a tough one to shoot from the hip on. I'm going to track down a good video though, for those that would be interested in that. It's our addressing tool solution, and it's probably, well, it's one of the better examples of using attribute rules instead of ArcGIS Pro for editing. And I'm not saying that's the only place where you can use those rules, but I think the addressing tools are a good representation of what those are.
I will share the ArcGIS Pro resource page for attribute rules. So that's one bit of information there that you can go off of. Yeah, it's a fun thing. It's a lot of things you can show if you have the data ready to go for it. Let's see here. Thank you, Ryan, for that video.
Sure.
Relating to the credits-free Living Atlas, what about if you are filtering Living Atlas content? Is it still free? More complex geoprocessing. There are some limitations as to what you can do with Living Atlas content. So you'll find that like certain options are not available. The only place you'll start consuming credits if you're using it in ArcGIS Online. Because ArcGIS Online, you know, if you're going in the map viewer and you're doing any kind of geoprocessing, geocoding, you are going to be consuming credits. In ArcGIS Pro, you're going to be consuming credits if you're doing geocoding using the World Geocoding Service. But I mean, the logic of credit consumption is that you're either using some form of Esri storage or Esri processing power. But you will run into there are certain things that are disabled on Living Atlas layers. You're not going to be able to save certain things off of them, certain layers. And it is kind of a layer by layer case as to what you're going to be able to do with each one.
Yeah, and Jared, this is Chad. I just wanted to chime in on a previous question that was asked. So someone had asked about, credit consumption of certain layers within the Living Atlas. I would say the majority of the layers do not require any type of credit usage. However, there are a few layers within the Living Atlas specifically that most of these layers are tied to data that would be available in like business analyst or community analyst. And those do actually require you to be signed in to your portal, and they do use credits. And it's something along the lines of, I think it's 10 credits for 1,000 for like 1,000 map interactions.
Requests.
So, pan, zoom, identify, whatever. But those layers should have a premium tag on there within the Living Atlas. So once again, it's going to be required that you're signed into your portal. And if you're not sure, it will have a little premium tag on it, which would specify that it will use credits. It's not a large amount, but
Thanks for clarifying, Chad.
And geo-enriched data does use credits to geo-enrich it.
I put a link in for everybody. There's a credits by capability. That's what we're kind of referencing. And the clarification that Chad outlined is in there as well. So
yes, the always fun topic of credits.
Yep.
Actually, I had an incident come up. I was trying to do drive time analysis recently, and I got the notification I didn't have enough credits for it. I said, how do I not have enough credits? So I reached out to Matt Robinson, whom you all met earlier, and he said, well, Jared, you're about to use 400 credits. Because I was trying to do drive time analysis off 1,200 points. So yeah, do be careful on some of those. But for the most part, if you're just talking small data sets, you're not going to be using that many.
One tip we just had to implement, because we had a credit issue too, was behind the scenes in your organization, you can limit credit usage, so you can stop people from using 1,000 credits at one pop.
Yep. Those are the credit budgeting tools. Those are useful. Yep.
All right, do we have any more questions for Esri here today? Oh, favorite style in Pro.
Favorite style in Pro? Oh, goodness. Well, I think if I go back to my style page here. So not just for the symbology though, but when you come in down to the creative styles, there's some really fun ones. Like this one, which kind of makes your contour lines look like these, really old maps. So I do like that creative style quite a lot. Otherwise, and the industry styles get really fun. I have used the stormwater symbols quite a lot, having done a lot of stormwater work. So it can be for everybody, but it's downloaded to your machine. So for example, you just saw that file download, and then when I come back into Pro, and I just need to remember where which one did I have to click to get to the style? So there is a tab here to import styles, and I just need to remember where it's at. But yeah, then you will import styles. So when you come in here to the insert tab, and then you will go to wherever you just downloaded that style to, and then you'll add it in. And so that's kind of computer by computer, but it will maintain throughout projects though. Okay, when will all these styles be available in the new ArcGIS map viewer? So map viewer is continually improving. We're we do a couple of releases every year. So every release, each one is getting done. Ryan, do we have a document for the release schedule on?
There's, I want to say the next one's in November sometime. But that doesn't really answer the question in terms of the actual schedule. I think it's quarterly, roughly. Maybe 3 times a year now, but quite odd to your point.
Yeah, I think the goal is to do 3 major releases a year, and then if necessary, we will do a 4th one. Yeah, but the hope was that we weren't trying to reduce the number of major updates that were being pushed out in order to cause less disruption to the users. But I do know, so what I can tell you is that it's in the works, and they're trying to get the full functionality of Classic Map Viewer in terms of the analysis tools you can run in there, and then just going from there.
Yep.
So on its way. Did you talk about customizing the quick access toolbar? I found it absolutely essential, so I wasn't having to switch between ribbon tabs constantly. Yes, you can customize it. Coming up here, your quick access toolbar, anything that you want, you can start customizing it how you like it to be. Also, another note, in this view tab, if you accidentally lose some of your panes, this is one place to get them back. It's like, oh, I need my catalog view. Or sometimes what often happens is when your contents pane disappears, yeah, just come back to view and then you can get your contents pane back. So quick way. And of course, if there's some customization that you're just not quite happy, it's not enough for the quick ribbon, whatever, then start coming into your options and playing around with it if you're not happy with how something is looking, like we talked about earlier. Had some problems to run a simple field calculation. I had to run an ArcMap and then reload the layer into ArcPro. Has anyone encountered that? Yeah, it happens from time to time. There's really not a huge rhyme or reason to it. If that happens to you though, one thing that I found is closing out of Pro and then opening it up again. Definition of insanity, but doing the exact same thing that you just did in GIS sometimes works. So that would be a recommendation that I would make if you don't have that, if you're having that issue. And you can also report it too. We do take all sorts of requests because no software is perfect and we want to keep making it better. So if you're having a problem, you can put it in the blog, put in a request, and people do look at it. Those are all checked, and anything that we can work on, we are working on. I don't know, that's up to Ryan. Ryan is my boss.
We will be there.
Right.
We will be there in some capacity, whether or not it's Jared and I, not 100% sure just yet, but we'll continue to, support this group and the conference certainly moving forward. So more to come there.
And I think our wind turbines are done now. So you can actually see the live result of what you watched me do. Those are the detected wind turbines from the calculation we ran. So that one did work. Yes, so I know we have, there's 13 minutes before we're scheduled to end, so do you have to update annotation feature classes created in ArcMap to work in Pro? There's a tool for that. Am I mistaken, Ryan?
So I think you are right, but I'm less familiar with it. That would be one we'd want to follow up on potentially. I just don't have the experience with it.
It would definitely be in the migration topics. I know I've seen that. Let me see if I can get the page for you. And then let's see here. Yes, okay. So yes, there is upgrade annotation feature classes. I'll copy this resource page here. So if you go to the bottom of the link I just put in the chat, there are notes about upgrading your annotations. Okay, what is your favorite thing that is better or new in ArcGIS Pro compared to ArcMap? Oh, multiple layouts, 100%, being able to have multiple layouts and multiple maps. Because really what ArcGIS Pro has enabled is high quality cartographic production. I distinctly remember pulling, I did the base visualization in ArcMap and then I pulled it into Illustrator or Publisher to actually make my conference poster or whatever. And now in ArcGIS Pro, I mean, I don't think since I started using it that I've made a conference poster or poster map using anything but ArcGIS Pro. So the ability to put all of those maps together and get such a high quality production out of it, yeah, there's no comparing really.
Can I jump in? Can I answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan.
I think the editing tools are just so much better. I know attribute rules were mentioned before, and maybe some frustration on differences in what ArcMap has with the attribute assistant as opposed to attribute rules. But I think those are pretty cool. But then, some other things with attribute editing. There's a feature called, not attribute editing, but feature editing. It's called group templates. So you can, in one full swoop, configure an editing workflow to where well, for example, maybe you want to draw a trail and have a trailhead automatically put at the front of that trail and at the end of that trail, two different feature classes, right? So points and then lines for the trails. You can configure a group template to, as you draw that trail in, potentially have, again, an end and a beginning to that trail. So you're making edits to two different layers in one editing operation. So things like that are really, really cool and make editing just a lot more streamlined, I think, in ArcGIS Pro. So
Anyone else on the Esri side care to jump in and answer that one, or should I move on to the next question?
I'll hush now.
Terry is such a heavy ArcGIS Pro user, I know. So.
He's back there, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know me, Jared, night and day, 24/7.
So see here, yes. So if a feature was missed, if you've run your analysis, you can just go in and edit this like any other feature layer. So come in and let's make say there was a turbine here, and then yep, you can go ahead, add any attributes you want. It's just any other feature layer, so that is all good. Did you cover Arcade in Pro today? No, we did not. No, we did not. Arcade is its own fun topic. If we can wrap up at 1:25, that would be great. Yes, Laura, we can wrap up anytime you like. Okay, final questions. We have a couple minutes. If anyone else has a last minute thing to ask, feel free to ask it. And if not, thank you all so much for your questions and your time. Really appreciate it. Never happier than when we get to talk GIS with folks who work with it every day. So with that, I'll turn it back to you all.
All right, well.
Can you open your project if a data layer is corrupt? Yes, you can still open the project. You'll get that lovely red exclamation point like what happened when I tried to import that MXT.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jared and Terry, Chad, everyone from the Esri group. Thank you. That was very informative. And I bet people are feeling a little more comfortable making the leap over to ArcPro after that.